Going on, everybody? It's another Friday, which means it's another episode of Man Up Real Talk. Listen, on tonight's episode, we got our good friend, brother Eddie Phillips, who's going to be joining us. He's going to be talking about his new project, second book he got coming out, and we gonna chop it up with our favorite historian on tonight. And listen, I want to also address. I ain't want to talk about it, Phil, but people have been asking me like, "What you think about this dude that says you shouldn't give to the poor?" So we're gonna hit on that a little bit, but
definitely gonna talk about that tonight.
yeah, we're gonna talk about him a little bit. And that's going down all on tonight's Man Up episode. So let's run that intro and let's get into it.
Let's get it.
This is a man's world.
What's going on, everybody? And thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Man Up Real Talk podcast. I am your host with the most, Mr. Mike Wiley, saying greetings and salutations to all of you, our faithful followers and listeners. Y'all know we appreciate every like, every share, every click, every download, whatever it is that you do to support this podcast. We do not take it for granted, and we appreciate y'all from the bottom of our hearts. We do. We thank you. We thank you so very much. Listen, if this is your first time joining us, I want to say welcome and thank you for taking time out to hang out with your boys. And if this is your second, third, fourth time back, we want to say welcome back because your boys is back on the air with the Man Up Real Talk podcast, the podcast for the people. And joining me as always is my brother-in-law. I should just cut that off. Man, it's my brother, man. It's my brother, my partner. My A1 since day one, Mr. Phillps, aka Mr. Classic, aka OG Triple OG, who is definitely in the building. What's going on, partner?
What's good, man?
Man, I'm feeling good, man. It's another Friday. We missed y'all last week. We took a bye. We took a bye week last week, but we
Mike,
are back
4 and 2.
Listen, man, we gonna say that for the sports pod, but listen. I understand.
We on bad. We on bad this weekend.
Yeah. I understand the excitement, man. Our beloveds are 4 and 2.
That's
you
right.
know what I'm saying? Yeah. They 4 and 2 before they went to.
I got the same record. I'm 4 and 2 in our fantasy.
Yeah, whatever.
First place.
I have our record we had last year. I'm 2 and 4 currently, but it's all good. It's all to the gizzard, man. But yeah, so they're 4 and 6, so I'm excited about that. The Bulls are back playing. I haven't watched the Bull games in a long time.
Man, I gotta get an antenna, man. Ain't no more Comcast Sportsnet, man.
What?
Yeah, I can't watch it on cable no more. They say I gotta get an antenna. It's like channel 68 something. I gotta get a whole antenna for my TV to watch Bulls games.
Wow. Okay. See, that's who knew. See, you know what? Let me tell y'all something. We thought this is what we wanted, right? Y'all remember we sat up there and said, "Oh, I'm cutting the cord. I'm gonna cut the cord, and I ain't gonna use cable no more." We said all that, and then what we do? We thought we was cutting the cord, and we really wasn't, because the same cable network who we thought we was getting away from, we still needed the internet for all the streaming services.
Yeah.
And then if you think, you know what I'm saying? And then if you think about it, you're paying for Netflix, you're paying for Hulu, you're paying for Paramount Plus, you're paying for Max. And what happened is that all of these channels said, okay, well, now we used to all just kind of come together on broadcast television and cable television, but since everybody is doing the streaming service, everybody started taking their shows off of TV, and now everything that you want to watch, you almost have to get a separate service for it. And quiet as it's kept, you're really paying the same amount of money that you was paying when you had cable.
Yeah, I mean, but some people like us, we got all the streaming services and cable.
See, that's insane, sir.
I went to go look for the Bulls game last week. I'm like, and it kept on saying this channel no longer available. This channel, every time I went to the Comcast Sportsnet channel, I'm like, okay, I know they changed the NBC Sports. This channel is no longer. And then I was talking to somebody saying, man, you got to get a antenna and hook it up to your TV. You got to watch that through the antennas. I'm like, wait a minute, man. Hold on. So now I got to go back from. So now you get cable. So now I got to go back to the essence of an antenna to watch my Bulls now.
Yeah, man. You got to get that. You got to get the antenna.
I don't even know where the remote control for this TV is at because I use the remote control from the cable.
That's absolutely crazy, man. It's crazy. You know what? I wanted to talk about this. You know what? Let me do this first because I want to get his opinion on it too before we get into some other things. Listen, guys, we got a guest with us on tonight, and this gentleman is no stranger to the podcast. We've had him on many times. He is what I like to refer to as our resident historian. Now, I mean, you know, I don't pay him, but he has a lot of valuable information. And here's the awesome part. It is free because he does a wonderful show on Thursday evenings called the Erudition Network. And it is an interactive Black history show where he breaks Black history down. And I'm not talking about the ABC stuff that we learned in school. I'm talking about legitimate Black history. And what I like about him is that no matter whatever information he gives you, he can cite legitimate sources. I mean, listen, the man is he that dude. Believe me when I tell you, he is that guy. But y'all already know him again. But for the benefit of those who don't know him, I want to introduce to some and present to others our friend, Brother Eddie K. Phillips. Miss Phillips.
Hey, what's up? What's up? How y'all doing, man?
What's going on, man? How you liking these circles, man? I'm kind of digging the circle look.
I like the circle. Let me see if I can. Yeah, you go. Okay. No, but I got a big face, man. I got a big face.
I have the same issue. I found myself always being off camera. I'm like,
yeah.
Wait a minute.
You try to go like
yeah, it don't work all the time.
Phil look good. Phil fine. He perfectly.
Yeah, Phil is fine.
See, with this circle, it kind of keep you in place. You know what I'm saying?
Like, yeah, it does.
Your middle motion.
Yeah.
So I don't move. I'm just
go like this.
Yeah, he be like that the whole time too. And he like this. Yeah, Mike, man, I'm just saying. I'll be like,
relax. Don't do that. Don't do that.
One time he was
don't do that. Look, Mike, don't do that.
Eddie, one time he was sitting so still, I thought he froze. I said, Phil, you still there? He said, yeah, man, what happened? I'm like, oh, nothing. I'm good.
Just lined up, man.
He was like, I'm not moving, man. I'm staying dead center. I was like, all right.
Yeah, hey, brothers, how y'all doing, man? Y'all good?
Man, how you been?
Yeah, how you been doing, brother?
Man, I'm good, man. You know, life is lifing like life always does, but you know, it always does.
Got you another book. Got you another book, I heard, bro.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to drop this new book. Actually, in the midst of doing this book, I got for many of y'all who don't know what I'm about to really mean, I got inspired. But I will say that God kind of let me know, hey, man, you got to do something also for these kids. So I started, the reason why I'm a little behind is because I started to go in and basically I'm doing a 3-book series, right? I did the first book, that's early world. And then this one that's coming is Middle Ages, talks about medieval time, talks about the Crusades, talk about the spread of Islam in Africa, talks about how how Africans basically saved Europe from the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, things we don't talk about. We spend a lot of time talking about Europe in the Middle Ages, you know, the knights and everybody running around in body armor and everything else. But what we don't talk about is how Africans basically informed, instructed, saved the Europeans who had forgotten basically how to live. We had Europeans who were not cleaning their bodies. We had plagues. We had all these other different things. And so when you start seeing the Moors and different cultures go into Europe, you see how that changed, even from their architecture, their math, everything. So this book kind of deals with that.
Did we introduce washcloth to the Europeans? That's all I want to know.
The
Because I
Moors,
mean,
the Moors brought them civilization, really, man.
did they introduce washcloths to the white people? That's all I'm trying to. Because
Well,
they don't
when you look at medieval times, and people don't really understand, man, you realize that in these castles that we look at these kings and queens and everything, but they were privileged. So you had kings and queens who would take baths in order. So if there was a bath, right, the king would take his bath first. Maybe the queen would use the bath next, but they use the same water a lot of times.
Oh no! Oh, why you tell me that?
Yeah, man. Oh,
So because they didn't have sewer systems like that and steady things of water, it was uncommon. And then sometimes cleaning yourself in their religion, and especially within the earlier Catholic religion, was seen as being you were doing more than what you should have been doing. So there would be a lot of smells. This is the reason why you saw, when you look at when people look at these shows and they see the people with the wigs on and the big bustier dresses and everything else, and the fans, and you don't realize that the fans were to keep them cool, but the fans were also to keep the smell so that you didn't smell.
Jesus Christ.
Right. So I mean, I'm just giving y'all this, so the medieval history that we get is still watered down, doesn't tell us, a lot of things, but at the same time, we very rarely get a lot of our African history. So my point was to do that. And then as I was doing that, it came upon me to say, listen, you need to do a book that really starts to break down Africa for younger people. It doesn't have to be a big book, but it has to be something that gets them to start asking questions about their heritage, right? Who they are, where they come from. What is the original name of Africa? Why did the slave trade start? Different things about Manu Musa, Mali, Timbuktu. Why did Islam spread more than Christianity? Why was Christianity hampered in spreading and different things? And why do we not discuss these things, right? So
let's do this, because what I want to do, Eddie, and I know you're like a friend of the show, but what I want to do, I want to give you the author treatment, right? I want to interview you like I would any other author. You understand what I'm saying? And not just write it off like, oh, it's just Eddie, and I know he got a book. No. So I want, I want to give you that same professional, treatment and respect that I would if I was bringing another author on. So I actually have some questions, some legitimate questions that I want to ask you, and we're gonna do it like that. So you talked about, so you already kind of hitting on it a little bit in regards to in regards to inspiration and why you're doing some of the things that you're doing. When you look at the book that you've already produced, and we'll talk about that, and the things that you're currently working on, what is it that inspired you to write these particular books about Black history? And then what specific aspect of our history do you really want to kind of focus on?
Well, what inspires me to in history period, and even writing books, books come down to the point of I can't reach everybody that I would like to reach just doing podcasts. And even though I try to do the show every Thursday, and then I also talk to people and different things, and I've instructed people over the years. But the thing is, I learned very early in my life that we don't know a lot about who we are. And I learned that a lot of our older, our parents and grandparents, due to slavery and different things, they don't really know who we are either.
Mhm.
And when I started to realize that my mother, and I kind of put this in my first book, my mother, when I first went to preschool, she put me, and it wasn't like on purpose, right? But she put me in a preschool that had indigenous people and Latinos and some blacks. And so they would teach them about their heritage, their culture, right?
Okay.
Where they come from. And for a long time, I thought, man, am I indigenous? Am I with them? You know, because I'm here, right? We kind of look
Right,
the same.
right.
My skin's a little, and so, but I love the fact that they taught them um, about their heritage, their tribes, and where they came from. And so, when you are exposed to that very early, you start to appreciate the fact of knowing who you are, and it's kind of what started me somewhat on my path. And then I started asking questions. And when you're young and you're a kid, you ask questions and you don't stop asking questions because you don't know until people tell you to shut up. And so
Right.
a lot of teachers couldn't answer those questions. A lot of people would tell me, hey, you going too far. Yeah, that's not what we asked for. And so over the years, I realized, people.
Mike,
Uh-oh, did he freeze?
yeah, I think he froze. Can you
Did I
hear me?
freeze? Can y'all
Oh,
hear me
there
now?
you go.
I can hear
Yep,
you.
you good.
Yeah, I hope it's. We had a little bit of weather here today, so maybe it's doing something crazy. But
Oh, okay.
but yeah, that's what started me. And so, in answering the other part of your question, I believe that we have to know our history before 1619, right?
Hmm.
We
Hey, Sistina,
cannot
what's going on?
give our, that's my baby. We cannot give history just with us being enslaved. And we should not
Mm.
limit our children to when the first time they see anyone in history books that look like them, they're usually in chains, they're being beaten or whatever. And we're talking about how these Africans were enslaved in the Americas and in South America, in the Americas period. And so if we start our history with that, then we're doing a disservice to our kids. We're doing a disservice to our culture. We're doing a disservice to our community because that's not who we are. We're in the Bible. We're in ancient texts. We're everywhere. And so when you tell people that, this is why I get mad, and I get those people that do it, when I see folks with 16, 19 bracelets, earrings, and everything else, what are we celebrating with that? Right?
Mm.
Are we celebrating that Dutch people bought some people over here? Rather, they were indentured and not chattel, but they were slaves. And then that takes away from the other cultures and things that, I mentioned in my first book.
So, speaking of the struggle of African Americans, when a lot of people would argue that when it comes to Black history, that it's Black history is often kind of framed through the lens of struggle and oppression.
Mm.
How do you then, as an author, kind of balance discussing the hardship with highlighting achievements and contributions? Because most people, when they talk about our history, it's always about just slavery, slavery, slavery. So how do you balance the hardships with the highs with the lows, or the hardships with the contributions?
Well, it's hard. There is enough in our history that is so barbaric. Um, I am I'm just finishing a book called The Delectable Negro.
Wow.
And it
Write these titles,
Wait a
man.
minute. Hold on. What? Say that again, brother. Hold
Yeah,
on.
I'm just finishing this book. It's called A Delectable Negro, and it talks about how Europeans, slave owners, um, saw the black people as delectable, and it talks also about a part of our history that we don't talk about, where they always call Africans savages, cannibals, and everything else. But a lot of people don't know that when, like, even with the Amistad. Remember that movie Amistad came out a couple of years ago? That's the first time anybody was talking about Amistad. But the Amistad was a real situation where slaves took over a slave ship, or Africans took over a slave ship inbound to the Americas when slavery was supposed to be illegal at the time. And so they took over and they tried to take the ship back to Africa. They were caught along the shores and brought into the brought into the colonies. Anyway, their purpose, the reason why the Africans said that they took over the ship, is because they thought that the European was going to eat them. Majority of the Africans, if you go and you look at narratives and different things and even books, they talk about this idea of being eaten. It's funny because the slave owners and the different people, we call it seasoning. We don't realize that they used to call it seasoning in slavery time, and we thought it just meant being beaten, right? But seasoning has other connotations here also. And so I'm finishing that book, and it's one of those things where I'm like, wow, man, this is pretty crazy what we have seen through history. And I do like the fact that the author does reference other historical texts, because that's what you really need to do. But what I would say is that I think that there is so much horror in our history, and we do dwell on it, but we got to start at the beginning. Right. If we start at the beginning, there is so much hope and so much wealth, so much prestige, so much honor that was given to the African in ancient times, but we've gotten away from that. And we see Black or African as something negative in connotation, and we don't really realize the benefits of what Africans actually brought to the table and what they did, and the communities, cultures, and everything that they inspired. So for me, that's where our focus should be. We should talk about the horrors, because that's a part of our history, but let's not start there, right? What got us there is kind of what we need to be doing. How did we get there? How did we get into slavery? What was the purpose? If you ask most people right now, why was the African chosen to be a chattel slave more than anybody else? They couldn't tell you, right? But we know historically why, right? We know why. And even though we're not taught why, right? That's what these books and different things are supposed to do.
Brother Eddie, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm sorry, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, you good, man.
Do you think
that's why we bring him on, Phil, to ask him these questions?
I can the stuff I be thinking, I can ask Eddie, because I know Eddie knows it. But do you think that there has been a purpose that he has been purposely put for, how they say how our ancestors were spoken so highly of in the past? Do you think that was purposely kept from us, as far as educational wise? Because I think so. I truly think that.
Yeah, it was, and there is historical evidence to show us why. One of the major things that happened was that when the papal bulls. So if we look at this and go back maybe just about 1,000 years ago, and people say, well, but that's really where we kind of look at, and what you see is there's a reason why they went into the Crusades, right? There's a reason why the Roman Church did what it did. And people hate to hear the church, right? But they have to understand that European church was the reason why Europe kind of went into a dark age, right? Only the priests and different people could read, and they were the ones who were given certain books to read. There was a reason why things were hidden. But even if we look at the Renaissance means to return, right? To bring something back. Yes, what they did was they went and said, but if you go read your kids' history books, they're going to tell you that the Renaissance is about Greeks and Romans. Well, who gave the information to the Greeks and the Romans?
Thank you, brother.
Where did the Greeks and the Romans go and had to go learn? They went to Africa. They went to Egypt. They went to places in Africa to learn from experts. And so when we know that much, then we know, oh, okay, that's why you hid it from us, because you wanted to usurp that idea right?
Mm.
And take it away from us. There's a reason why by Spain, the throne of Castile, right,
Mhm.
pushed the Moors out, right, where the Moors had helped them, had invigorated their culture.
Yes,
There's
sir.
a reason why they passed something called the Essential del Negro, which basically said that they would not allow people who had black skin or who were of black skin or dark skin to be able to attend schools, to be able to attend places of higher learning, to be able to own property. This is well before the age of discovery, before Columbus ever came over here.
Yes, sir.
So it's a lot
That's
to it.
great.
Thank you, man.
So,
Thank
so kind of piggybacking on that, because um you talked about different things like with the delectable Negro, how they kind of looked at us and just different events. Um, were there, and I remember you telling me something about I remember you telling me something about an event called the Red Summer.
Mhm.
Was there a moment when you were researching that a moment in Black history or a moment in our history, was it something that stood out to you that really impacted you, like in a way that you didn't expect it? Like, was this something that just was like really just put you aback, like, holy crap?
Well, I think there are several, but you mentioned one. Red Summer to me,
Now this one is interesting. I don't think, and a lot of, I've never even heard of the Red Summer before I heard you talk about
you.
it on
Yeah.
the show. So
Eddie was the first
go
person I ever
ahead,
heard bring up the Red Summer.
go
it
ahead and tell them what Red Summer is.
well, Red Summer, what we call it Red Summer, but really what it was is there was a year, right, where racial, and there's a reason for this, where racial inequality hit an all-time high, some would argue, where uh, from January of 1919 all the way to the end of the year, you would see murders, lynchings, killings all over the country. And there is historical timeline where you can go and look through things that happened in the South, things that happened in California. But really what it was is it was a time of upheaval. We have to remember that World War One was over. We were having or about to be over. We were having a pandemic, the Spanish flu. Black men were coming back from overseas in Europe and with a new sense of self-worth and pride. And they were clashing with white people in the country who came, because remember, that's not too far removed from the 1800s, who had this idea that, you should, this birth of a nation idea, right? We were also in the period of time where the birth of a nation was released in theaters. This is also believed that what kicked Red Summer off, where they saw the Klan as a heroic entity that had been squashed and revisioned by history. And
Mhm.
so, in order for white people to feel empowered, they went out and they started to kill across the country. We started seeing lynchings rise at that point a record level. We saw it in Georgia. We saw it, like I said, in California. We saw it in New York. We saw military people killing folks and murdering folks. And there are timelines and things that you can go back and look through with Red Summer and just kind of follow it. But I often remember when reading from Carter G. Woodson, who's considered to be the father of Black History Month. Carter G. Woodson talked about being around and during the year of Red Summer and being in Washington, D.C., and watching people chase Black folks down the street and beat their brains out and pulling them out of cars and attacking them. And a lot of us cannot phantom an idea like that, right? That you can't go out of your house, you can't go down the street, right? Without, and I'm talking about men, women, and children, right? Being killed. Chicago had a major riot in it where men, women, and children were killed. The Chicago race riots. And you can go on and on and on and go look. I mean, there's so much. I know Pastor Razor and me talked about what happened in Elaine, Arkansas, where Black sharecroppers were attacked and killed. So on through all of these different areas during 1919, where people were being killed, hunted, and I also, there's a point to what you said there, because here's the thing. I think when we think of lynching and murders, we think of them as an isolated incident, and we don't realize
Most of them were public.
they were public, because the lynching always has to be public because it sends a message. But the thing that we don't think about is that this is an ongoing trauma. This is an ongoing stress. And there are, just like with an earthquake, there are afterquakes. There are times where people just vanish. The bloodlust doesn't just go away, right? So sometimes these lynchings happen, and though we may say 19 people got killed, that may not necessarily be the historical truth, because we go back and we realize that for years after that, people were being attacked. People were being profiled. And this is why we had, after 1919, we had some of the beginnings of the Great Black Migration, and people, a lot of reasons why a lot of us are in northern states and Chicago and Detroit and things like that is because folks didn't want to live in the South, and they had to get out of there because their whole families were wiped out.
Yep.
See, now
that's facts. That's how my mom, that's how my grandfather, my grandmother, and my mother and her sisters came to Chicago. It was bad in Mississippi. They had to get up out of there.
So then I guess my next question would be, well, I mean, go a couple ways, but so when you talk about the trauma and like in the ongoing trauma and stuff like that, when you look at the different things that's happened, historically, like what role do you think our history plays when it comes to shaping like our present day experiences and present day struggles of blacks and our community?
That's somebody at my door. But go ahead.
No, I was just like what role when you talk about those type of things, like what role do you think our history play when it comes to kind of shaping our current day experiences and our current day struggles, just within our families, within our communities, and or just in general?
Well, I'll tell you this. I have been really thinking lately about how where we are right now plays into things. I was about 2 days ago, I was reviewing because I was reading that book, and I was reviewing a woman named Lydia Marie Child. She wrote a book in the 1800s. It's called An Appeal in the Favor of Africans. And what she was trying to do in that book was tell people, hey, look, this is what's going on, and why. She was an abolitionist, why we should stop slavery, or the idea of how we treat Black folks. In this book, she talks about how they were training dogs to hunt down Blacks, and she talks about letters that preachers were sending to each other. She talks about how this guy sent a letter to another preacher talking about how a disabled enfeebled slave who happened to break a vase was pulled into a room, into a slave quarters with all of the slaves on the plantation, and systematically cut into pieces from his feet all the way up to his head, and how he was begging for the slave master to cut his head off, to kill him before it was all over. And no one was allowed to stop this barbarity. And the idea that she asks in this book, and I don't think, and the reason why I went back to is because the author in this Delectable Negro book, I don't think he really read that book. And so, but it brought me back to go pull up my notes on her book. And as I was going through it, I came across the part where she talks about sensible, caring Black people who, and sensible, caring white people who, when put into the dynamics of slavery or to the dynamics of racism, they change. They
Mm.
allow things to happen. There was a man named, it's called the Milgram experiment. They did it after World War II to try to figure out why the Nazis were able to get away with killing so many people. And
Mhm.
what they've, and she discovered this early in the 1800s. What happens is you put people in a situation of stress, drama, and you mess with their minds. So then the slave accepts the brutality that's put on him, and the slave master falls into the idea, or a person who's not even a slave master, just white, falls into an
Mm.
authoritarian role. And you see this play out in our jobs. You see this play out in
Yeah.
our communities. You see this
Yeah.
play out in society, where they feel like they can make a decision for where you should be, where your family should be, just based on the fact of the stratospheric mentality that I'm higher than you on this chain. And so that lets us realize that our history is not that much different. It may not be as barbarous, as bloody, but the fact of the matter is it still exists. And so this is why it's so important that we teach this history to everyone, not just black kids, not
Right.
just white, everybody, so that we understand what pushes us to these dynamics.
So going there in regards to teaching, and even you made a comment earlier about how during the Red Summer, how they made reports about there were 19 people killed, but that probably wasn't entirely true.
Mhm.
We know that oftentimes history is written by, as they say, the victor. I think that's the saying.
Yeah.
And it ain't always the truth. It's just
History.
like
Yeah.
when they talked about Columbus, we now found out at a later time that he really didn't discover America because it was already there. So
Oh
it's like,
man.
how did he really discover it? So my question to you is like, and for those who may want to go into research on their own, what were some of the challenges that you faced when you were researching Black history? And this is particularly in terms of like accessing accurate sources and even overcoming like some potential biases.
Well, I recently on one of my shows, I tried to show my path. I made a map of how I go about my actual path of how I do my research, because I one of the things that I have found, and this is not just in the area of Black history, just in general in society, we have gotten to such a point where we can only research in a way that we were taught to research.
Mm-hmm.
So if you went to school and you did research projects, and whatever the way the instructor taught you to do research is the way you're going to do research.
Yep.
And sometimes they didn't teach us correctly, right? Or it was truncated.
Facts.
And so one of the biggest things, and I gave steps, and I think I wound up doing almost 2 episodes on this, but one of the things was identify what you want to know. For me, it took, okay, that meant that I got to go read things that maybe aren't truthful, as well as things that are factual. And I have to compare those things, right? I have to read them, I have to engage in them. So I remember one time a guy, when I was on the Navy on one of the ships, was like, "Why are you reading all of these racist books?" And I said, you see them as only being racist, but I see it as a way of looking into the minds of the people for primary source information who wrote these books. What were their thought process? They lived during that time. What made them think it was okay to burn a Black body, to mutilate a Black man? Why did they think this, right? And then on the other side of it, I read slave narratives, right, to find out what did they live through. What was their thoughts on the slave owner, on the people who they live with? And you can bounce it off the primary source, right? Now, once you do that, then you can come up with questions. You can start to say to yourself, okay, well, if that was going on at this time, let me write this down And now let me say, okay, during this time, what else was happening? What could have pushed people to think like this? This is like we were talking about Red Summer. Okay,
Right.
the Spanish flu was going on. World War I was going on. There was the rise of the Second Klan. And so you start writing down questions for your research, right? Now that gives you another path to go down where your literary, right, for your literary work to go, okay, now let me start looking at other sources here. Let me start
Mhm.
looking at what else was going on in the legal system. And it gives you a whole map. Now you get a better understanding of what was going on within that 10, 15, 20-year cycle.
I
And
got
if
you.
you
Mm.
and if you start to do it like that, history doesn't seem so large and unapproachable because now I understand it at multiple levels of, what was going on from the personal level, from the political level, from the spiritual level, right? What was happening in society? Those people who had their hearts broken because they were white and black and they loved each other but couldn't be together, grew up on a plantation together, had kids together but couldn't be together. That's why some of us look light skinned like we do,
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Mhm.
right? So all of those things, it's just how you approach it, and then going systematically through your sources, through your primary sources, secondary sources, and just basically breaking it down. And then at some point, you got to synthesize, which is what we're just talking about. Okay, how did all of this work? How did all of
Right.
this come about? And so now you have a better understanding of being able to explain that history, to teach that history, and provide that history.
I like that because you know what? I do that with my boys sometimes because they'll be like, "Well, how do you do this?" I'm like, "Man, look it up." Well, if you go to Google, it's thousands of
Yeah.
pages because it links everything. So it's just like, okay, get a centralized idea of what it is you want to learn, and then start there.
Yeah.
It was somebody I saw this post online where this guy was like, "Man, listen, I know y'all gonna think I'm crazy." He said, "But have y'all ever really thought about how we can watch things on TV?" And I'm sitting up here thinking, like, all right, he's obviously been smoking because I was, and he was like, "Look, how do we really watch stuff on TV? And how is it that I can go live and talk to y'all?" And I'm like, bro, I said, I'm not even trying to be funny. I said, it's literally technology. I said, but now I'm going to help you out. I said, go to Google. And I said, in Google, how does broadcasting work?
Mhm.
How does streaming work? I said, now you may run into some things like antennas and signals and radar arrays and stuff like that. I said, but don't get distracted. I said, because that stuff will eventually lead you to where you want to go. So I love that concept of finding out what is it that you particularly want to know and go into it if that route. Because history, when you think about Black history, it's more than just, the kind of the little stuff that they used to give us in
Yeah,
school.
they give us a circular history. They
Yeah.
Yeah. So
isolate you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just kind of repeat the same thing every year. You don't grow out of it,
right.
and you can't. That isn't not the way to approach history. And you know, I think the other day I just did a show yesterday, and I was talking about Africa for kids and our children and how we have to explain that to them. We got to
Mhm.
start in a very basic way, and it may seem like really, really stupid questions to some of us, but those questions are important because they're not taught that. If you go ask a
Absolutely.
young child right now, what did the ancient indigenous people call the land of Africa? I
I'd be
guarantee
like,
you
huh?
they don't. They go Africa.
You said
Right.
Africa.
And so and they're understanding that okay, that came from the Romans, right?
Right.
Africanus, but what did what is it believed that the indigenous, our ancestors, the people who actually were there, Africa is the mother of creation. What did they call it? And then you start to get
Mm.
names like Akabulan, Kemet, Ethiopia, and you start to understand that oh, okay, these are mentioned in ancient texts, and then you go from there and you lead them to say, okay, yeah, the Bible mentions Ethiopia. The Mesopotamians, they may have called it Akabulan, and then the Egyptians called it Kemet. And so once you start down that path, now it opens up their mind and start going, well, why did they call it that? What did those things mean, right? What was it? What was those names for? It meant the black land, meant dark land, meant the soil of the land. It was talking about the Nile. Akabulan meant the mother of mankind, the Garden of Eden, where life started, right?
Mm-hmm.
These have meanings. And so once you start your children down that path, right? Simple questions. And then people ask me with this last book, well, why did you make it into a quiz book? I said, well, if you see any book that I write in this series as just a quiz book, you are mistakenly wrong, because I give you the question as a primer, right? I want you to ask the question, to read the question, see if you can answer it. And even if you can't, right, you're going to go back and you might find, oh man, there's 2 or 3 pages that explains now what this is. Now I understand what the heck I'm looking at here, right?
So piggybacking on that, then, when you talk about like the book that you currently have out, and I know you're working on a sequel to that, well, not a sequel, but you know, the second part of that book.
Second part of the path, yeah.
And then you said you're working on a children's project as well.
Yeah.
So how is it then that you want to or how are your books going to challenge or maybe not challenge, but or expand common narratives, right, about Black history, or just expand on about Black history, or the mainstream, the stuff that they give you in mainstream education?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the major pushbacks that I got, and I knew when I wrote it that I would get some pushbacks on this, but one of the major pushbacks that I got was that I don't believe, and if you've ever listened to me, I do not give credit to hominids. And if you don't know what a hominid is, hominids are those things that they taught us about, the Australopithecus and different things like that. I don't give any room to that, because here's the thing. There is enough historical and archaeological evidence to suggest that Homo sapiens, right, are distinctive unto themselves. Mm-hmm. And I don't need to go and associate them. So one of the things that I've did in this first book, and I kind of do a little bit in the second one, is to challenge the whole Darwinism acceptance that we have. It's not saying that Darwin was completely wrong, but what it is saying is, let's understand why learned men of those times felt it was necessary to say that there were monkeyish or apish creatures that we came from. It was always designed to show that the white man, the Anglo-Saxon, was the genetic evolution out of the beast.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's really what it was always designed to do. And so once we understand that, then you understand why they're so high up on. There are less bones and things of that nature in the world than there are Homo sapien bones. Homo sapien bones that date back to 65,000 years ago. Homo sapien bones that I think the other day when I was talking about about Africa, and I was explaining that, you know, they had when you go look in Jebel Iraq, there are fossils in Morocco, right? They date back to 300,000 years ago, right? And these are the earliest Homo sapien bones located in Africa. When we go look at the Sidu caves, right, you will see that there are bones and layers of plant bedding that they found. Plant bedding that the plants were picked because they kept insects off of the people who laid on them. This is how smart they were, right? Mm-hmm. 77,000 years ago. So why do I need to associate myself with a beast or something like that? But the contemporary historians out here will give you that stuff to lead you off into a path, right? And to lead you down a path of in my opinion, sophistry, right? You're going to get lost. It's going to be a bunch of lies that they haven't themselves proven. And there's so much debate within the science of what is and what isn't, right? That don't even get lost in that. Just know who you are. Now, does that mean that there were not things that went on in our DNA? I think in my book I wrote about how you can see that the Denovesians and other were Europeans, non-African, because that is what the genetics show, who laid down with some creatures, right? And then I laugh because the Bible actually kind of shows some stuff about that too. But they laid down with these creatures, and they had, that's why that is in your DNA, right? So
that explains why some people look like. Well, let me shut up. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But I mean, these things that we don't talk about. But historically, God gave us the science, right? He gave us DNA. He gave us these markers. I'm not even one of the things that angered me, and I got the cultural reference, is I was telling somebody recently, I said, you know, the thing that got to me, even with this presidential election, don't tell somebody who's black and who's not black. Because if you really went and looked at it, but I posted, I posted several times that the M130 DNA marker for India, right, shows that these people are they're descendants of Africa. That's not hard to believe when you look at Indian people, right?
Listen, we all came from Africa.
Every single one.
That's why it's a useless argument.
It is a dumb.
I don't understand why.
There you go.
It's a useless argument. It really is.
We literally all came from Africa. And
but that's that issue of not knowing history, man.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
They don't know it.
But brother,
when you go ahead.
I want to go back to something you said. I want to go back to something you said about the whole. And I never rode with that, even as a young kid. When they used to have in school with the charts, they have like the ape,
and the Cro-Magnon man, and Neanderthals, and all that
over
stuff.
to like the man.
Yeah, man.
I never agreed with that. I never agree. It's like you try to make it like, so basically we came from apes.
Yep. But I don't think they see. But did they have that in white schools though? Like, you know, because I'd be wondering about that sometimes. Like, because like I remember that, and they was like, oh well, yeah, you know, we like black people always seem like we originated from apes and monkeys and stuff like that. But you know, when they would go back and they would talk about, you know, the other races, oh well, no, you know, we can date you back to the Neanderthal and the Cro-Magnon man who was a traveler, and you know, he had all of this stuff, and we came from creatures. And
even as a little child, I never liked that.
I always thought it was weird. I'm like, so you mean to tell me I'm part monkey? And that's
God will not be mocked, man. God will not be mocked. I remember a couple of months ago, I had shared that the Sumerians, because Pastor Reyes was talking about the Sumerians. People don't realize that the Sumerians were called Sangnagiga. Sangnagiga means the black-headed people. That's what they were called. And when you look at the migration patterns of them, right, we found that there is something that is called a phoneme, right? The way we talk, right? The syllables and things and the distinctive units of the sounds of our voice, not the words, right? But the sound, right? And what we found that Africa had the most phonemes. In other words, their distinctive way of making sounds in their language had the most of anybody. And what was funny is that scientists found that as you went further north, east, south, you started to see less of those phonemes as they got more and more away from Africa. Okay. You can trace them all the way to the Americas, just like you can trace a genetic marker. So we know that all life came out of Africa. Language came out of Africa. Yes, those languages changed over time. People's migration patterns and the DNA that we can trace them over time as they went across this planet. So it is a dumb argument.
It's stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah. I've never been I always thought it was a little. I always thought it was weird. And then, but then when you think about this stuff, man, they used to have this stuff in museums, and
Yeah.
they was like the beginning of man, and they showed this thing walking around, and they showed how we just all of a sudden stood up, and they explained it as evolution. As creatures, that's how they would evolve because they were they were trying to adapt to their environment. So as humans, as environments change, we adapted and we evolved into the beings that we are now. I'm like, but how does that work? Because how do you still explain monkeys then? Because if we evolved,
Two
wouldn't that
things
mean that
cannot
they were no
occupy the same
longer
place.
right?
Thank
It's
you,
like
Eddie. Thank you.
I think Lauryn Hill said that two MCs can't occupy the same space at the same time. So how is it that I came from a monkey and yet I can still go to the zoo and see? You know what I'm saying? So it was like when you get older, you start to ask those
Well,
questions.
it's
It's
called
like,
scientific racism, right? And
mm,
Darwin himself was not particularly by historical evidence a racist, but he was inspired by racists. And
yeah,
so you
that sounds like Trump.
when you are inspired by racists, that means that a lot of your theories are going to be racist, right?
Okay.
Um, and so there is a lot of things Darwin didn't know. Darwin knew nothing about DNA. Darwin knew nothing about the way we break down cells and different things nowadays, the way we trace the DNA genomes. He knew none of that. And so what we're now realizing as we go further in history is, and that's why I say God will not be mocked. God will make sure that you understand that everything that somebody said, these lies, these scientific lies, it will start to be disproven. You just have to go in and make yourself knowledgeable enough to understand what it is that you're looking at, because that is the reason behind being taught and then being shown. Teaching to me is not just me talking to you. It's to tell you, hey, go look up who Charles Lyell was, right? Go look up who influenced Darwin, right? Go read Darwin's essays. Go see what it was that he was actually talking about, not what the teacher told you that he was talking about. Go read it for yourself. You don't have to do a deep dive, just enough for you to get that understanding so I can go, okay, I got it. And now I understand that what you just told me was completely foolish, right? Doesn't make any sense in what you just said.
So piggybacking off of that, then, in what ways do you think that your book can be used as a tool for education? Because I look, if you have, first of all, if you haven't purchased or downloaded, and you need to get that, if you can share your screen like where they can get it,
Oh,
where they
okay.
can get your first book. It's not even it's really hard to explain because although it says 101 black kid, like it's a quiz book or a challenge book, it really isn't,
No, it's
because
not. It's
he
not.
kind of touched on it earlier.
Yeah,
It's like
it's
you,
not.
you get a question, the question is really the primer, and if you answer the question wrong, you go back and it really breaks down, like I
Yeah,
mean, like strategically breaks down like the answer. And I mean, it's unlike any challenge or quiz book, for lack of a better term, that's out there. So when you putting that thing out there, how do you think your book can be used as a tool for education, and a tool for parents or even community leaders to teach Black history effectively?
no, can I say something before you go, Eddie? And I want to
Go ahead.
thank you. Let me shout Eddie out. Eddie sent me the book over the summer when I had the
Mm-hmm.
kids. Me and Jackie had a copy already.
Mm-hmm.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, we do. You see me doing this? I'm like,
'Cause I can't hear myself. But
oh, okay, yeah.
Eddie sent me a copy of it over the summer, and I was going over it with with my boys.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, they was kind of intrigued because it was stuff that they had never heard before.
Mm.
Yeah, man.
You know what I'm saying? So I just want to thank you for that too, Eddie.
Oh no, man! Look, the whole purpose of doing the book in the way that I did it was I wanted to make sure that it was done. So even like this one, a digital and a print book. And I knew.
Let me say this. I'm sorry. Let me say this real quick. Yeah, stop. Listen, I like print books, but to me, this book is better experience in its digital form.
Hey man, them ebooks off the shame, man.
The ebook is. Let me tell you something. There's nothing wrong with it. If you just want to get a physical book and have it in your background, that's fine. But I'm telling you,
that ebook though.
That ebook is legit, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, and you talking about I'm sorry. I didn't want to. I just
Yeah,
want to
go
put
ahead.
that out
I'm
there.
sorry.
No, but I'm glad y'all said that, because here's the thing. The ebook for me, because I had to go in and code that book, right?
Mhm.
So that it would ask questions, or you could answer the question in real time.
Mhm.
But here's the thing. I saw it as something that, because we can have it on our tablets, our phones,
Yes.
or whatever,
Yes.
I could stream it to my television. I could stream it to whatever.
Yep.
And then I can go through it with my kids or by myself, and I
sir.
can just read it.
Mhm.
And so, and as I've been telling people, look, it's great to have the book, and it's nice and it's thick. It's great
a
to have that.
looking book. It's a good looking book.
It's a great book, right?
Yeah.
But this is 280 something pages, right? And so anytime you have a 280, what you're paying for is the print. When you get an ebook, and I'm not saying you shouldn't get a print book,
No,
but
print book too, y'all. But he going.
but the reality is the ebook is usually cheaper because you're not paying for the print, and it's almost in like Amazon, it's instantaneous. So once you buy it, it's on your tablet, it's on your phone, and now you got it, right? And you can go through and you can read it. And so that's the reason why I take the time. I was telling you before we came on, I was like, I'm taking time. I let them look at it to see if it's going right and can be put out there as that ebook, because that's really what I wanted it to be, as a learning tool. Because to me, that was more of a way to spread the information. If I'm sitting there with my sons, which I've done, I sit there with my sons and go over the book and I ask them questions, and they look at the question and they go, "Oh, that's wrong." And in my books, I try to give you a hint. Okay, you almost there, or this is what this is, and just something to think about, and then take you there, and then give you the full breakdown, right, of what it is. But yeah, it's a learning tool. It should be. I just don't think as I looked on it, I don't see a lot of books that talk about early African history, not in that way. And so I wanted to do that. I wanted to make sure that I hit things from early history, and I can't do everything, but enough to intrigue you, to make you want to go further. Hey, maybe I didn't know anything about Mali. Maybe I didn't know anything about about Carthage. Maybe I didn't know anything about the African cultures that were here, right? I knew nothing about how Christianity got into Africa. I don't know any of this, right? But now I do. Now I can go and go, oh, I understand some part of it. I can go look through the Great Mosque of Tijani and say, oh, okay, wow, that's still standing. This is where all of this academic learning happened in Africa, right? That inspired Europe. So yeah, it's just a step process to get you where you need to be.
I'm starting to wean myself off of certain aspects of social media because, man, you don't even realize it sometimes. You'll be on that stuff, and especially if you frequent TikTok or YouTube or whatever, and you look up and it's like an hour or so then pass. And I said, okay, I gotta be more cognizant of the fact that I'm wasting time looking at nothing. So what I'm starting to do is I'm saying, okay, 10, 15 minutes a day, I need to be putting something towards something where I'm gaining some type of knowledge, and I don't care what it is, just something other than just, looking, trying to get that dopamine effect. It's like, no, I need to put my time towards something else. And that's why I think that's why I appreciate the effort that you put into doing this as an ebook, because this is something that you can pick up, 15 to devote 20, 30 minutes to it and get a lot of information.
Yeah.
Probably more than you could get sitting in the classroom setting, to be honest.
Or some that you probably read before in the ebook. And then it just came back like Eddie said something
Like,
And
man,
you
I
go
just
right back to
read
the
that.
you go right back to the book.
to it.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
okay, this what this meant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
man.
yeah, the ebook dope though, Ed. It
The
is.
ebook is dope. Let me ask you this, man, because we're gonna wrap it up in a second. Um, how do you hope that this book and your future books, how do you hope they'll influence conversation around race and identity and just history in in a broader public sphere?
Well, I've realized that, you know, you when you write a book like this, it has to be for whatever the purpose is. My
Mhm.
purpose is not necessarily, and I tell people this all, it's to be rich. My purpose is to educate, and so
Mm.
education to me is so important. But what I will say is that doing these books, because I have three in this series, 101, 102 going in, and then 103, try to, just to add one extra question for each one because it's
Yeah,
three
yeah.
different books. But
Mind you, it's 100 questions.
it is 100 questions. You know what? I had to appreciate that because look, while you said that, let me tell you something. When I did the ebook and I wrote the ebook, I was like, okay, this 101 questions, but I'm writing and I'm just putting the information out and sourcing everything. It wasn't until I put it into the actual print book that I realized, holy crap, this is a lot of information.
It's a lot of information, man.
It's a
lot.
lot of information.
It's a lot.
That's why.
It's a
That's
lot.
why. And I say this not because
You
not
can teach
because
a
we just
you,
cool
you,
like
you
that.
can really teach a course with that ebook.
Yeah,
But
Honestly.
when I look at what you do every Thursday, it bugs me that people don't appreciate it more, because the stuff that you talk about on Thursdays, man, people go to institutions to get that stuff and pay for it.
Oh, believe me, my
And
wife lets me know.
I know she on you about that. And I mean, and every Thursday, you there and you are sharing and you are putting out this information, man. And it's just it hurts me sometimes. It's like, I don't think, one of the things that bug me about us is how sometimes we don't value what we have. And we don't value sometimes the people. Me and my sister, and I know this is totally off subject, but me and my sister was talking earlier today, and we was talking about how the world, it's like, like people don't respect how people put in work.
Yeah.
Because now it's just everybody, just because you can get famous from doing nothing.
Yeah.
The Hawk Tour girl got a show, and I'm like, for what? What did she do?
Oh, it bothers you.
Hard work is
What
not
did she-
respected no more.
It's not respected anymore, and it's not valued anymore. So when I see people like you that's going live every Thursday and providing a service, like a valued service that people should pay for, I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
And
I
I don't
appreciate
know
that.
how many people tell you, but I appreciate you, bro, and the stuff that you do and the information that you get out there. You get mad respect from me, like for real, for real.
Respect,
Because
man,
it's like I be sitting up here debating like I ain't going on today. But you go out there and we ain't talking about nothing, but you go on every Thursday and you giving out information that we need as a people, because we don't know a lot of us don't know who we are. A lot of us don't know where we came from. A lot of us don't value the power and the presence that we have in this world, because we don't know where we came from. And here you are on the front lines, and you just like, no, man, look, forget all this stuff they teaching you in school. Let me give you the real. And I just want to appreciate you for that.
I appreciate that, brother, because I'm gonna tell you, it doesn't get. There are times, we all human, and there are times you're like,
Yes,
oh
sir.
God, I'm about to teach this. I don't know. And then there are times where I get pushback. People don't know the messages that I get and the things that people say. One of the kid.
I can believe
It's
I do too.
I had a girl sent me a thing saying you a dumb N-word, right?
it.
All of these different, it's all these different things. People send me stuff to challenge what it is that I'm telling them, and then don't take the time to do the research themselves. so that it's very easy. I get friends who come on and say, well, you're not talking about this particular thing. And I'm like, you need to go back 4, 5, 6, 7 episodes because I can't.
Right.
I'm talking about a lot of different things, right? And it's just one of those situations where we just got to really start pushing. If my focus was just on getting seen and known, then probably I would be doing a lot more and do a lot. But that's not my focus. My focus is on teaching and not to just get out here and do what I see somewhat pseudo historians do and give you bull and foolery. Even with the other book that's coming, they probably I'm gonna get this one done. That's what I told God, and then we're gonna go ahead because it's not gonna be as long. But I labeled that book, I copyrighted already for what it is. Who am I? That's what it's titled for the kids. Who am I? Questions for myself and my teachers. See, because here's the thing. Here's the thing.
You gonna have me up there questioning the teachers. That's what's
our
up.
teachers are not just in school; they're everywhere.
They're
right?
Yeah,
there are people on the street that come up and tell us things, and we need to verify, to validate. So when I named it, who am I? Questions for myself and my teachers. I'm not just talking about your school teachers. I'm just talking about period. People who are teaching you, right? One thing I love is when my sons come back and they'll ask me a question. It may be something from one of these books. It may be something from whatever. And they'll ask me a question, and then we can sit there and we can have that discussion, right? Because that furthers an understanding on their part on what history actually says. And it lets them, right, to go and dig deeper into what this is. And they do that. And it's impressive to me. Even my Maddie, my youngest, will come up and say, Dad, I got a PowerPoint that I want to do. And I'm like, what? And so, it's just to inspire them to do those things. But yeah.
And you probably already answered this, but my last question for this evening is, what message or takeaway do you hope your readers walk away with after they interact or after they read one of your books?
You are worth something, right? You are not just the soul of what people see in your neighborhood or whatever. If you were a member of the extended Rockefeller family, right? That you would know that your great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather, whatever, was Rockefeller and was one of the richest people in modern time. That gives you a sense of pride, a sense of self. You're not going to carry yourself in the same way as just anybody when you know that you come from something of worth. Too often, we have taught ourselves that we come from nothing and that we are nothing. And I've heard so-called celebrities even intone and say to our young people that history don't matter. It's what you do today. There is some truth to that to an extent. Do what you need to do today, but your history matters, right? Do you think that King Charles over there doesn't know his history, right? Do you think that some of the richest families in this world don't know their history? They choose somebody from every generation to run their family's money, right? Rather you are part of the Rothschild family, the Rockefeller family, the Carnegie family. This old money, right?
Yes,
but it's ran. And I just think that once one of my biggest things I say almost every week is prioritize your history. Prioritize it in your life so that even in your own personal family history, right? If you learn how to do research on general history, that feeds into your personal history, right? Well, my family's from Mississippi. My family's from Mississippi on both sides, on my dad and my mother's side, right? Digging into my history, I found out that my grandmother's or my mother's family, they came from England, right? One of them came from England. She was a mulatto. She married a black man, right? All of these things make us who we are. And when other people can go and find themselves, right? Because I would tell you, even one of our presidents, Trump, he knows his family history. He knows who his daddy was. He knows where his money comes from, right? Know who you are. because that in turn makes you understand who you can be. Because if they could do something grandiose, and you're 4, 5, 6 generations after the fact, right? Maybe you're related to a great black inventor and don't even know it. Maybe your grandmother them had to leave the South, but they own acres and acres of land that you don't even know about. It's just a matter of learning who we are, where we come from, what got us here, so that we can prevent any of these stumbling blocks that come up, right? That are repetitive. And then not only that, be proud, have some self-worth, right? That's really what it is. That's self-worth. If you, man, people read this book, and I heard back from some people going, man, I didn't know about the wealth of Africa during this time. Yeah, because you're not taught that, right? You're taught that Africa was a dark continent, there was nobody, right? Just a bunch of savages running around. And they had Tarzan, and I don't typically use, but they had Tarzan the nigger killer, right? That's what they wrote in the book. I'm Tarzan the nigger killer, right? The white man was ruling over the jungle.
Yep.
Wow.
So just know who you are.
You know what, Mike, man? That's why my nickname for Brother Eddie is the definition of
Tarzan?
knowledge of self.
Oh, I'm like, what? I'm like, wait a minute.
Relax.
I'm like, wait a minute. Wait.
No, but that's why I call him the definition of knowledge of self, because the knowledge that Brother Eddie got, man, I'm serious. If he can catch, if these young men could get the knowledge that he got at a young age, I truly believe that would change their whole upbringing or how they look at themselves.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us do grow up where we don't know that we was kings and queens.
Nope.
We don't know that Africa is like the richest continent in the world. We don't know stuff like that unless we research it ourselves. So
not only the young kids knowing it, man, the adults too.
Yeah, all black folks, man. Be real.
Yeah, all of us just need to be more, because, like I said, it's too much. It's too much power. It's too much potential. It's too much greatness in this body of people that I love.
Brother. Respect, brother.
And I get so frustrated with sometimes, man. And it's because, and most of it is because we don't know, and we don't value because we don't understand.
Exactly.
And I think once we need this. This is the type of knowledge that we absolutely need.
Well, what are you getting out here, brothers? Let's be real. I know we can get out, but let's be real. What are we getting out here? And I'm not clowning everybody, but let's just be real. We got brothers that get on for sound bites, and what they do is they get out here and they tell you they're teaching you history, but they're not. They're giving you regurgitation of something that was said to them, something that was told to them that they never validated, and then they pass it on.
Yes.
What we want to do is to give you source, so that not only know what Herodotus wrote about you, know what Josephus wrote about you, know what these ancient folks wrote about the African, how beautiful the African was, how smart they were, how what they brought to humanity before the last 1,000 years, right? And so I think sometimes, I get so many people that get on, and it bothers me. And I tell people, the pseudo historians who get out here, right? And they just say things. There's no proof, no evidence. I love, and I tell people this all the time. When people send me videos, when people send me stuff on Facebook, when they say, "Hey, Eddie, is this true? Hey, Eddie, did you see this?" I'm not mad at those things, because I want you to ask.
And I'll be like, "What is that?" I'm like, "What is this dude talking about?" You'd be like, "Man, this stupid."
Yeah. Because sometimes they just make up things. A brother sent me something the other day about Nat Turner. And I guess a brother had put a video out talking about what they did after they executed Nat Turner. And he was like, "Eddie, is this true?" I'm like, "Absolutely true." Yeah, they skinned him, they flayed him, they took his bones, they melted his skin down for oil. They did all of these things to prove a point, right? To prove a point that you will never do this again. But you're not taught that, right? This is absolutely possible. You can go look it up tonight if you don't believe it. This is what they did.
But brother Eddie, didn't they do I get his name messed up all the time. In South Carolina, did they put their heads up on the up
Talk
on
about Denmark Vesey?
did they put their heads up on the
Yeah,
thing for the other slaves to see so
yeah.
they couldn't do it
And,
again?
and what makes, yes, they did. And what makes people think that these are people who came from a European, England, French, German
Yeah,
mentality who would
yeah,
do
Right,
that,
right,
who
right,
would do
right.
that anyway. You know, you read
yeah.
about William Wallace being cut and torn apart and
Uh-huh.
over
Yep.
the, so what makes you think that that mentality still didn't exist in the colonies, right? That's where these people's
Yeah,
ancestors came from.
yeah.
So it does come down to teach history. The last thing I would say is I just told my son this today. When you, and I think I said on the show the other night, we have to start pinpointing our history too. Just like I said, you get your section of what it is, and then you pinpoint it, right? What am I really trying to get out of this? What am I really trying to learn about this situation? Because the more deeper I get into it, when I was reading this brother's book on the Delectable Negro, right? He was adding things in because I could tell he hadn't really fully read some of the works he was referencing. But if he'd have got more deeper into some of the stories, he would have understood there was a deeper thing than this. Like the gentleman I was telling you earlier about how they cut the man up and they were burning his body parts, right? In the in the stove. He had slaves start a fire. They cut this poor young man up. The slave owner kept chopping him, and they kept throwing his body in there till it be charred. Then something strange happened. See, this is the part that he left out of his book. There was an earthquake. There was an earthquake. Everybody ran out of the slave quarters. The flyer where it fell and buried the young man's body parts. The slave owner, feeling that he was ticked off that his evidence had been, he had them to go and dig it all back out and build another wall and put the young man's body parts in the wall. But wait. This is in Kentucky. What wound up happening was slaves who escaped told and said what this man had done to this slave. Now, the laws of the time said that you could kill a slave in the time of discipline. You couldn't just go in and just kill a slave, right? During slavery. That was money. And there was insurance money. See, that's the part. That's the part. It wasn't that the guy necessarily broke the law. It's the fact that the insurance company insured every slave, every animal that was on that property.
Wow.
So if you killed this slave and then you claim that insurance money, that's insurance fraud. So when they told on them, the authorities were coming to go dig the body parts out of the wall, the slave owner killed himself. That's the pinpoint of history.
It's crazy.
Right? That's the pinpoint. You could talk about him burning and bragging because his wife, when they asked her for a testimony, she said, yeah, I asked him that night what was all the screaming about. He said it was a party he was having with the slaves and he had never had so much fun and even in a ball that he had last night. Right? So these are documented things in history, but this brother left it out of his book, and I get it. But the thing is, when I read things, that's what made me think. I go, I remember that, right? And that's what I mean by you read sections of history, right? Tear them down by 10-year, 5-year periods, and then get a better understanding. And then it's not so overwhelming for you to be able to do.
Good stuff, man. Eddie, do me a favor. Tell the people where they can find you and find all your work.
Well, you can always find me on the Erudition Network. I'm usually on Facebook or I'm on YouTube every Thursday night. My wife is on Mondays. She does a show on Mondays on the Erudition Network. You can find my books on Amazon. And I'm gonna tell you, let me put this out there to you all. This book here, when you buy this print book, do not think that you're making me rich. It costs more for Amazon to print this book, right, than I make for it. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is for you to go out and buy it, for you to go get the digital book. You can find those books on Lulu Books, or you can find them on Amazon. I tell people every time I talk about these books, and I'm saying with the new book, is that you're going to get something from this book. You're going to know something that you did not know before, or it's going to make you acknowledge something deeper. We talk about DNA. We talk about migration patterns. We talk about kingdoms. We talk about how war started. We talk about how these things interact. We talk about the Bible interaction. There is so much in this book for so many different people. And in this new book, well, the Middle Ages, we're going deeper. Why did you have castles? Who were the first ones to come up with these ideas of castles and communities? And what were they based off of? Look at the African villages and how they built their villages, and then look at the European castles and how they built their castles. But we have to dig deeper. We have to know more. And so that's where to go, man. Go get those books, go get that knowledge. I'm here every Thursday. I try to be every Thursday, unless something happens to me. I always tell people, God willing, I will be back next Thursday and we'll sit down. And I'm always open to any questions. So anybody who comes on, any questions, I start that show every Thursday now with questions. Whatever question you got on history, just drop it and we'll break it down. Right? Yeah, man, there it is right there.
You can check it out right there on Amazon. 101 Black History Questions.
Hey, that $18 is immediate. It's immediate.
You get that today. You ain't gotta wait for delivery, especially if you like me who play for Prime and I still can't get my stuff in 2 days because I live in the hood. I'm talking to you, Amazon.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos. I know you can hear me. It's not fair that I have to wait for 3 days to get my stuff.
I feel you, man. I live in the boonies, and let me tell you something. Sometimes my mailman, he one of them, right? He one of them. And I've had to report this brother several times. He is one of them. The postmaster had actually come deliver our mail because this guy is one of them, right? And when I saw him with his rebel flag and his truck,
he one of them
delivering the mail, I realized maybe he should, yeah.
Oh no,
yeah. So you run into all that, but yeah, man, I appreciate you guys having me on tonight, man, and
I appreciate you letting me get my my interview practice in, man. I'm trying to get better with the questions. You understand what I'm saying? Because we can just sit up here and we can just talk, but I had some focused questions for you on this evening, so I was like,
those are good questions.
Let me give this man the respect that he deserves and ask him some authoritarian type questions.
Those are good questions, man. I enjoyed it.
I try, man. I try. I'm trying to listen. You said something a little while ago, man, and it was about just mastering your craft, and it was because we were talking about young people, and you was just like, man, listen, when you in your 20s and everything, by the time you get to your 30s, you should have mastered something.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that stuck with me. I'm well past my 30s, but even now when I do stuff, it's just like, whatever it is that I'm doing, I should get to a point where I have mastered this thing in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So me having a podcast, I said, if I'm going to elevate it and start doing more interview type podcasts, I need to stop curating questions when I have guests on and talk about specific things. Sweet. And so that's what I'm doing. So I appreciate you letting me get my practice in, man, and ask some questions when it comes to you authoring.
Well, no, man, you brothers inspire me, man. You inspire me. I watch you guys weekly. I try to get on and try to support those people who support us, man. And you guys inspire me. I laugh, we joke, and sometimes it's needed, brother, because let me tell you, you life is life. And so, when y'all get on and we joke, and sometimes we've been on here, man, just cutting it up because you need to laugh, right? You need to be able to let that thing go. And I'm not saying everybody else don't got, but especially as Black men, it's so hard, man. And being able to just laugh at things, man, and be like, yeah, I don't know what that was about, but
look, because I'm gonna tell you before you popped in, I was showing about the cutting the Pastor Keon with himself and not giving to the poor. I'm listen, but I ain't even go there.
Well, I don't know if you saw Kirk Franklin new interview or new video he put out.
You see
Yeah.
that mess when he was up there doing the Jays. You know what? We had a great conversation.
We're not going.
I'm just saying, y'all. But this is what y'all show is good for, and I appreciate when you brothers talk about that stuff, man. Because I'll be like, what? Yeah,
I was just about to say we had a good conversation,
educational, great conversation,
informative.
Yes, let's not talk about. Let's not talk about these crazy ninjas that's out here.
Yeah. They are. He was, like, what is he doing? You know what?
No, and what was he doing? Yeah, he was doing like this to the guy, was chasing him across the screen, and he would. I was like, look at this.
I'm like, is Marvin Sapp running away, or is he singing?
Yes, he was. I said.
I saw it.
Fred Hammond was on a cane, and he looked so out of. I said, Jesus, please take this foolishness out of.
You know what? Oh my God, my people.
I can't anymore, man. It's just like
what they say. My people perish for lack of knowledge.
Yes,
no, my people perish because they stupid. Y'all stop this foolishness. Getting up on this, you got all. Here's what bugged me about that, and I don't want to get into it. No, don't get into it, Mike. Okay, but no, here's what bugged me about that. You got all of these church legends, man. You got Fred Hammond, Yolanda Adams, the Clark sisters.
They all was up there.
All of y'all was up there looking stupid.
They did the Jackson 5.
They was doing the Michael Jackson. Okay, I'm done. Listen, Thursday nights, Eddie Phillips. Your Edition Network. Y'all make sure y'all go and support this brother. He doing some good work. You go on Amazon, get that book. I'll post the link. He'll post the link. Listen, y'all ain't babies. You know how to go to Amazon and look up stuff. Y'all
go look it up.
You got 10 packages in the mail tomorrow. That's coming tomorrow. Y'all stop that. Y'all know how to go on Amazon. Man, go out and check this and support him and support the Your Edition Network. He is doing a service to the people and he's doing a service for the people, not to the people, but he's doing the service because I ain't gonna feel to say pause. I'm so sick of that. If I hear somebody else say pause one more time.
And don't forget to check out Sister Tina Phillps on Mondays. What time is that?
7. She's on at 7 now, right? She's on at 7. Well, she's on 7 o'clock y'all time. 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock our time. Yeah. So man, listen. Brother, as always, I appreciate you, man.
Oh, no, I appreciate y'all.
I appreciate you as always. I thank you for coming on. And that is it for us. Listen, guys, real quick shout out. We y'all know that we are believers and we're Christians and we love the Lord and everything. My brother is getting elevated to deacon status on Sunday, man. So
congratulations. I just talk about that.
Yeah. I want to shout that out. I know he don't seem like the type, but he gonna go ahead and I'm
a man that love God very much.
That's it.
Very much, man. And I love the fact that because I can personally attest to his growth and to his transformation and just how the Lord has just done some things in his life, man. And
let me get Eddie a quick story real quick before we leave. Eddie.
Sure, go ahead. We only been on for an hour and a half. Go ahead.
Go ahead. How you doing that?
Mike and Kelly used to come to me and invite me to church, right? And I was like, I don't do church because I had a bad experience with church. So it kind of made me have a distaste with church people and the church period. Mm-hmm. So I would always tell them I don't do church. So one day to make my daughter Kennedy happy, she asked me to go. So I went one time with them. And I kind of liked the way Pastor Ray's was preaching. And that kind of drew me in. But I would have been in church if it wasn't for him and his wife. So brother-in-law, come on, man.
Yes, sir.
You know, it's one for you and Kelly.
Listen, if it wasn't for the Lord, bro, we were just.
Well, we know it wasn't for the Lord. That's
love.
But y'all was the vessel. Yeah. So come on, take a look.
That's all it was, man. We were just vessels, man. But I'm not only godly proud, but I'm just proud of just his change and just how the Lord has just worked in his life, man, and just how he just
Sure.
has a different perspective to know where he came from
Yes,
and
sir.
to see where he is now, man. It's dope. So I'm glad that
Feel good people, man.
yeah,
We
man.
share that love of that music. We was sitting up there that one night
Man.
talking about all that music, man. I was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
man. Yeah.
that was pretty fun though.
We gotta have
I'm
another show
I'm
like
gonna
that.
send you some mixes, Eddie. Soon,
Okay.
soon I find my flash drive with some mixes I recorded on it. I'm gonna send you some. I got
Oh,
a
okay.
couple of 'em. I'm gonna send you some. I
All
got
good, man. I love music, man. My wife and the kids will
yeah,
tell you so
yeah.
all the time. All right, brothers.
Yeah, man. So that's it for us, guys. Listen, we appreciate you all as always, man. Every like, every share, every download, every click, whatever it is that you do to support this podcast. We do not take it for granted. We appreciate y'all. We love each and every last one of y'all. Listen, it's the weekend. Go out and enjoy yourself and enjoy your family. Love on somebody this weekend,
Yes,
man.
sir.
Please, if you don't do nothing else, do that. Check in on your peoples. I
I was just
always
about to
say,
say that. Check in
not
on your people.
check
Depend on your
in
people.
on your peoples, man. Because
Yeah.
look, times is crazy, and folks is out and folks is going through. As Eddie said earlier, life be lifing, and sometimes life hit people, and it's just good to just check in on. You don't know how powerful a word of encouragement can be for
Yes,
somebody
sir.
when they
Yep.
need it.
Yes,
So
sir.
it's just good every now and again just to check in on your people. So check in on your people, spend some time with your family, and if you don't do nothing else, man, just do something for yourself. I'm all about self-care now, man. I'm at that age where it's like, listen, I got to take care of me. I done took care of y'all for a long time. I got to start looking out for Mike now. I'm just saying. I'm all about that self-care. So
I'm with
listen,
you.
guys, if it's the Lord's will, next week, same time, same channel, right here, Man Up Real Talk, man. Until we talk again, y'all get 2 fingers to the side. Make sure you holler at your boys because we out.
Peace.
Later.